Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everybody. I hope you're all having a fantastic day today, or as good as you possibly can. We all have down days, don't we? And I know from the comments yesterday, some of you have said you're having a bit of a hard time. Family pets, not so well. Family relatives, not so well, you know. Anyway, so let's change the subject. I have got to say, well, first I'm going to start off with a few caveats because I read some of the comments yesterday where people had completely misunderstood, not many of them, but a few, of how I come across. These are just my thoughts and opinions. When I went into the imaginary world of the, trials by social media, that's not actually fucking happening, okay? To the 4 or 5 people who think when Fiona says something, it's going to become law. It's not. Fucking hell, I'm a nobody. Who cares what I think? Well, maybe some people do, but I'm not an elected official. I'm not a member of the British royal family. Honestly, who gives a shit? It's just a chat. Or some people who say, oh, so you're endorsing Elon Musk, he's evil, blah, blah, blah. Or other people who said, oh, so you think Elon Musk is the second coming of God? Actually, no, it was the furthest thing from that I was suggesting. Oh, wouldn't it be awesome if Elon was here in the comments, reading all your comments? Can you imagine if we could get him to come up on a live? That would be awesome. I didn't know he was autistic. Quite a few of you pointed that out. I had no idea. I just think he's exceptional. And so what if I do? Just because Fiona Hesketh said Elon Musk is exceptional doesn't mean dun 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 planet Earth is going to adopt him. You know, for God's sake, calm down, those 4 or 5 people. Anyway, that brings me to the next subject. King Charles, our king. Now, I have been a critic of Charles's in the past. I loved Princess Diana. Back in the day, like over 20 years ago, I took a stance. I was a different age. It was a different era. But I was so proud of him last night, and a particular part of the speech that he gave, where he's basically saying the same thing. Calm down, everybody. Be polite. Agree to disagree. There is nothing wrong with people disagreeing, as the majority of 99.9% of you guys are so polite in the comments. But there's always one, I suppose, 1 or 2. I don't know if they're even members of the channel. They just happen across it and they just think it's okay. I suppose they do it on other channels and other social media. They just come in and go with a load of shit. And we British are a very tolerant, accepting and open nation. We are a multicultural nation. I know that's a hot potato back in the UK, immigration. I really don't understand because I haven't lived in the UK now for, God, years. 12 years, 13 years. Anyway, Charles was basically saying we should all be polite, give each other breathing space to express different ideas and opinions without losing our shit all over the internet. That was, I mean, he didn't say that, but that was the nub of what he was saying. And it was a particular paragraph that I did put on my ex account, and it really did. It brought a tear to my eye. I just thought, I've been an enormous critic of his in the past, and I was so impressed. And I actually felt for the very first time, genuinely, because I've had a problem getting over the fact that the Queen's not there. The Queen Elizabeth is not there anymore. She was there all my life, all of, I'm guessing, all of your lives. And she was my monarch. She was my queen. And last night, for the first time, I felt Charles is my king. And I was very proud of him for trying to bring the temperature down. And that is one of the vital jobs that a monarch does, because a monarch is not political. And a lot of you have said, oh, he's into the WEF thing and global warming and all that. Now, I'm not getting into global warming or the WEF, but trust me, Charles has been talking to plants for a long time. Prince Philip was into the environment. Her late Majesty was into the environment. Charles was into all this stuff long before the WEF. And also, yes, maybe he is, you know, I've heard him say things like Great Reset. Give him a chance, because he does have to meet with all different political people. That's one of the things a monarch does, which is why it was really quite childish of Harry and Meghan to refuse when Trump was in London. And I was not a Trump supporter, but he was the elected president of the United States, being hosted by our late Majesty, royal family, and it was very childish of them not to go, because royals are not political. And also, humanity will sort itself out. I've seen it happen before, and I dare say a lot of you guys have seen it happen before. I think people tend to panic too much and think, oh God, society's going in this direction. And a lot of you were quite horrified at the thought of trial on social media. I'm not quite sure why it would be so different if you had jury service, 12 jury members, for example, called up to sit and pass a guilty, not guilty verdict online as opposed to in real life. It would be like a Zoom thing, so I don't really see the difference. But yes, there are other aspects of it that would be dangerous, which I can clearly see. But as I say, humanity finds a way. Now, in the early 90s, we had a big recession in the UK. And where I lived in the south, we were hit particularly hard because the south in those days was really quite wealthy and the north not so much. I don't know what it's like. They used to call it the north-south divide. And during the early 90s recession, which was hideous, trust me, the divide closed. They did feel it in the north. Well, this is what I was told on the news at the time. So, I mean, I don't know, guys who lived in the north at the time, maybe you can tell me. But living in the south, it was awful. It was awful. And I honestly thought it was never going to get any better. I just thought, this is it. This is life. It's like shit. There's no money. I mean, we literally had no money for food, me and my boyfriend at the time. I won't bore you with the details, but it was very, very hard to get by. And then all of a sudden, computers, of course, had been around a while. The World Wide Web was sort of launched to the general public, and I'll put another caveat in because I always get people saying the internet wasn't invented in 1993, it was invented back in the 50s and 60s when people had teletext machines. Yeah, if you were fucking rich and could afford one, but it was accessible to the general public thanks to St Tim Berners-Lee and the World Wide Web and CERN in Europe. So we had computers. They were very basic. But then everybody wanted modems, and Windows 95 was launched, and suddenly just society changed, and it seemed to change for the better, from my perspective anyway. And people started talking to each other, and I mean, loads of people were getting modems, loads of people were getting Windows 95, then they needed an extra stick of memory, and it sort of boosted the economy, and people found a way. And although these seem like very dark and weird times where social media is definitely, there are bots and troll farms that manipulate our minds. Now, I've had a couple of Meghan supporters on X saying, oh, you won't be able to accuse us of being a bot. Well, I never fucking accused you of that in the first place. And you don't see me blocking you, do you? So, and one of them said, I'm here. I said, why don't you go away if you don't like it? And they said, because I'm here to call your shit out and you don't like that. I don't care. Come, call my shit out. Do it. I'm not blocking you. I'm not deleting you. Your posts are idiotic. You know, if you're going to join a debate, join a debate. Don't just make some shit up that I haven't said and then argue with another sugar about whether I said it or not. It's such a waste of energy. I mean, you can do it. Like I say, I'm not deleting any comments or blocking anybody other than that loon who... I think everybody now knows who the loon is, but that one's blocked. And nothing to do with the sugars. They are not guilty, I don't think, on this occasion. So, but life will find a way. And I think that by Elon saying, everybody, you know, eventually, ultimately, he thinks that's a good idea. Everybody pays $1. Some of you have said, oh, I'm not giving my precious bank details to social media. Well, really, to function in the world today, you can't seriously tell me you're not already giving your bank details or credit card details or PayPal details or some form of breadcrumb. You're giving them, because I give them to loads of people all the time. All my utility companies, for example, I have to pay the bills. I don't go to a shop and pay cash at the end of the month. It comes out of the bank. Graham, for example, he teaches people to fly on another platform. They have his bank details. When I purchase something on Amazon, they have my payment details. I mean, everywhere I go into a shop, I buy a pint of milk, bip, chip and pin. They have my details. It is a fact of life. And I'd like to add that I am completely against the idea of a cashless society. We must all resist that at all costs. But on the whole, electronic banking and electronic transfer, it's a reality of today. That is a reality. I mean, you cannot function in the world today without giving your details or data to somebody. If you hold a driving license, the government have your data. If you have a passport, the government have your data. From the day you're born, actually, on your birth certificate, that is data. And yes, there can be data breaches. That is also a reality. Thankfully, it's never happened to me. I know it has happened to people, but they bring out more and more secure features all the time. For example, if anybody was trying to do something to my bank, I get a text message, so I'd know immediately and say to the bank, no. It's called double authentication. So I think there's a little bit too much panic. And I mean, if people really don't want to give their a payment, because I suggested a month ago, maybe passport or driving license. And a lot of people said, no, I really don't like the idea of that. And some people said, I don't have a passport or driving license. But I mean, in this day and age, everybody has to pay bills. Everybody. I suppose unless you're a dependent and you live with somebody else. Which brings me to children. And a lot of kids, parents who worry about what's going on the internet with their kids. They would find it more difficult to get onto Twitter because they would have to ask a parent to pay the $1. And then the parent has a little more knowledge and control. Let's say all platforms were to do it. But I think we all know Twitter's been pretty much the worst. But if all platforms were to do it, then that does give the parent some control. Somebody else was like, oh, you endorse Elon Musk just because of a few stupid trolls. Why don't you shove your stupid trolls? Well, my daughter told me a story. I'm not familiar with this particular TikToker. But apparently there was a big TikToker really recently who was being bullied by two smaller TikTokers. Again, I don't know what their names were. And my daughter said, oh my God, this big TikToker was so upset. He went live and hanged himself live on TikTok. Oh my God. And the two smaller TikTokers apparently were on the live and they were egging him on. Now that's... And it is a fact. Some people do get very upset. Some people do commit suicide. Not me, because I think my brain is just wired in a different way to other people. But yes, there are people out there that are vulnerable. And surely for the sake of them, $1 and a platform having certain details, or I mean, if people were worried about their details, you can very easily set up a separate PayPal account quite easily. I think Elon was the founder of PayPal, wasn't he? Or one of them. So you could set up a PayPal which just has a very small amount of money in it. And use that so that the platform doesn't have access to your main thing. But it is still very difficult, or probably near impossible these days, to set up a bank account and have absolutely no trace whatsoever of the physical person who set it up. And again, don't ask me how I know that. It used to be possible. It did used to be possible. Very, very difficult, but... it was possible. I think people panic too much. I think people get too emotional, too invested. Thankfully, the majority of you guys are not included in that statement. But some people, I see some people on X, I go and look at conversations that are nothing to do with me or my subject. I just go and have a look. And they get so heated, so wound up. They literally get emotional and lose their shit all over the internet. And I'm like, do you really think that your comments, pro or against a particular idea or ideal or country or war, do you really think those comments are helpful or are going to achieve anything other than you're going to have a very, very negative experience of social media? I see other people sort of saying the same thing, saying, look, I just said such and such. Why are you getting so upset? And people can be driven literally crazy by social media. Again, thankfully, I'm not one of them. I think Graham and I are pretty thick-skinned and don't care so much. So I was very, very proud of King Charles giving that speech last night. I just loved that. And I mean, a lot of people, they call Camilla really bad names, rude names. And they say things like, oh, she's a tart, she's a whore, she stole Diana's husband. I believe Charles and Diana were in love when they first married, because I sort of lived through it. And they seemed perfectly happy, and something in the marriage went wrong. So when people say, oh, they were completely unsuited to start with, maybe, but I think they both really tried. And I genuinely believe if Diana had survived and was alive today, she would make it her business. I've said this many times. She would have made it her business to help Camilla, help Charles, and support them, because Diana believed in the monarchy, the stability of the monarchy, and that it is William's heritage. Had Diana lived, I think a lot of things would have been very different. I'm sure you can imagine one particular situation which never would have happened, in my opinion. Never would have happened. I mean, people say crazy things, and I've noticed it for about 10 years. Before that, people were just like talking to each other normally, fairly normally. In the last 10, 15 years, I'd be sitting off just observing a conversation, like I say, nothing to do with me, where one person would say, for example, I like the colour blue, and I'd see someone reply and say, why do you hate the colour red? And I'd think, that's not what the original poster said. Why are you doing that? Why are you deliberately trying to stoke up a row? So the original poster would say, I didn't say that. And then they go, yes, you did. By the very intimation that you say you like blue, you automatically hate red. There you go, prove my point. I brought my receipts. Oh, I fucking hate that term. Oh, receipts. And wasn't it that Javanka, whatever her name was, Meghan Markle, that came out after Oprah and went, Meghan's got the receipts. I just hate that. It's called evidence. I will produce evidence. Nobody goes into a court of law and says, hey, judge, I brought the receipts. You'd be held in contempt of court before you could blink. So, these new terms and stuff that come along. Oh, and I was watching Neil Sean this morning. I love him. And he says that Harry asked Charles, William and Catherine for help to have a UK property. Now, I don't think he used the word allegedly. And Neil does have contacts in the palace and PR people who are in the know. So I take that as about 85%. Yeah. So, and a lot of the papers are still talking about it. So, I mean, I don't care. I really don't care if he moves back to the UK or not. It'll be interesting, let's put it that way. If he does, will she come with him? Won't she? And another thing, here in Spain, because one of the supporters asked a few days ago about what I see in my search feeds. And that does interest me, that's a valid thing. What I will say is, over the last week, when I searched Meghan Markle, I was getting less and less and less, and other people, other stories, Colleen Rooney, you know, that sort of thing was cropping up. And I was thinking, this is weird. And from yesterday and today, I couldn't find a single item, no puff pieces. So is that a loss of interest from the public? Or is it somebody economising because the money's running out? As I said at the beginning, I may well be full of shit. So, you know, Sugars, Meghan supporters, whatever, Sussex Squad. Or, I mean, I never knew Elon Musk was so polarising. And I'm only observing him as the AC. I'm not saying he is the AC. God, someone asked him once if he was an alien and he said, no, but I used to be. Which I thought that was a really cool answer. And if I did get him on a live, I'd say to him, are you the Antichrist? And see what he says. Because I think he's got a really thick skin and a sense of humour. And a lot of you were like, oh, but he went out with Amber Heard. So what? Loads of men are led by their dicks. They lose their minds, don't they? Pretty face. I can think of somebody. Anyway, there's enough chat shit from me for the day. Stay cool, stay calm, and relax and chill out on the internet a little bit, guys. Thank you very much for listening.